So ASV takes all these buttons and puts it down to 3 things. Do you guys see that? Like literally, it takes your percent minute volume. And remember what we talked, what's normal minute volume for us? It's 10% of my body weight, right? 10% of my body weight. So for your patient, by height, that's your normal percent minute volume. So your machine, one of the things it's going to ask you is how tall are they? Okay? And then sometimes this is good enough where you can sit next to them and do one of these things. But sometimes just ask the hospital or like measure them. Like just measure them. It's not the end of the world. Do you guys have tape measures or no? Okay. You guys do have it?
We do have tape measures.
Yeah. So you can measure the patient and just tell actually how tall they are. So this is your percent minute volume. Okay. So let's say we picked up a drunk college girl. What percent minute volume does she need? Would you put her down to 50 or would you put it up to 100 or would you put her at 200? 100. She's normal. Put her at normal, 100% of what she normally is. Okay? What if someone is, I don't know, give me some examples. What do you think? DKA. What do you guys think? Where should we put that guy? Huh?
200.
Higher than 100. Yeah, 20, 200. How are you going to choose how to go up and down?
Based off when you dial it in, it tells you what the minute volume, the actual minute volume is, so it should match whatever they need to be in.
Yeah, but how do you know that you match whatever they need? End tidal CO2. So I want you guys to pay attention to that. What should your end tidal CO2 be? Should it be 20?
It depends on what if it's early decay.
If they're dead, yes. If it's early decay, maybe, yeah. So you basically want to titrate to a CO2 that's around their normal range, okay? Do you want someone in the 90 range or like 60 CO2? You probably should go up on their percent minute volume. How frequent should you go up on it?
Every couple minutes, like let it try to work. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. So this is what your machine, your manual says. If you crack open the actual like booklet, this is what it actually says. So you can titrate by PCO2. So if someone has a high PaCO2, that means their pH is low, right? That's what they're saying here, right here. You see that? So patient is active and continuously shows signs of respiratory distress. So they're breathing fast and they're just not comfortable on the ventilator. They like you, the manual says, go up or down by 10 to 20%. Sometimes that's not fast enough, and wait 2 to 5 minutes. That's what the manual is saying here. I brought up this slide. I literally screenshotted the manual, and it says go up by 10 to 20%. So I don't know what your guys' guidelines say. Sometimes 20%. I would probably favor 20% increments because your drive times are so short, and you just don't have enough time to kind of like sit there 10%. In the hospital, they got all the time in the world. They can drink coffee and go 10% at a time and stuff like that. So does anyone know what the guidelines say for you guys yet, or has it not been decided? It might not have been decided yet. Titrate to effect. Okay. Okay. It's more like take a feel for it. How does it feel? Yeah. So if someone, basically they're telling you, if someone is you're blowing off too much CO2, go down by 20%. And wait 2 to 5 minutes. If you're not blowing off enough CO2 or they're working hard, go up by 20%. Okay? This thing basically tries to deliver a minute volume. That's all it's doing. I'm going to go back. It lets you set a PEEP. It lets you set a percent minute volume, and it lets you set FiO2. What's a safe FiO2 we said? 50%. Can you do 100? Yeah, you can do 100. You're fine. But we try to ramp that down, okay? So this is what I was talking about earlier. PEEP, you were asking me about PEEP and stuff like that. If I think they have some kind of atelectasis, some kind of mucus plugs, like a bunch of mucus in the lungs, they have pneumonia, they have a reason to need PEEP, I increase the PEEP, okay? I don't always increase the FiO2 unless I think they just need FiO2. So if someone has any kind of pneumonia-ish, we try to tend to err around the PEEP of 10 or so, like that area. There's going to be some problem. This is why I want to go back to the physiology with that. I wanted to answer your question earlier. Okay, so ASV takes all those modes and basically just drops it down to that. So it tells you to set it up basically. It says you push modes or wherever it's at modes. You pick ASV, and then your screen looks a little different. You guys bought everything. So you guys have way more options. These guys only have like ASV and something else, non-invasive or something like that. But your guys' has a lot more options, but you picked ASV, okay? You have to titrate a height for that patient before you start off, okay? So if you open it up, it gives you these little parameters for the controls. It gives you a little bit of extra. What is this?
The amount of the upper limits of the pressure that
Your,
it's gonna give.
AKA maybe my upper limit pop-off valve?
Yeah. So ours are, that is our set limit, and our pop-up valve is 10 above it.
10 above, exactly. So the machine tries to not go above a pressure of 30 to get the volume that minute volume that you want, okay? It tries not to drive in more air than 30, and then the pop-off valve, like he said, is 10 above this. So a good guideline to set it to is 30. Okay, a good guideline to set it to is 30. Can you deviate from that? Yes, but just with considerations. What's this? That's their height. Excellent. FiO2, PEEP. You guys saw this? And then what's this?
Sensitivity, basically.
Yeah. So if someone has heart failure and they're triggering the ventilator every freaking second, what can you do with this part right here? You can turn it up. So because it takes more pressure to trigger the breath. Does that make any sense? Did I lose you guys anywhere there? So I'm just showing you all the settings. These are the buttons you can push. You go in there and you can push these buttons. So remember all that big menu of options? You have limited menu options. Here's a question for you guys. Now, if you push more, so you went to controls, it lets you change all these, then you go to more. What's this?
Speed limit for inspiratory breath.
Yeah, what does that mean?
So if I shorten the time, I'm going to give that breath faster. If I increase the ramp, so I give the breath as fast as I can.
Yeah.
If I lengthen the time, then it gives the breath slower or lower.
It's much more smoother. So for a COPDer, they might like that fast ramp up into the pressure, shove the air in faster. And then for someone that's normal and doesn't need a freaking punch in the face every single time, then maybe you want to lower the ramp down to like 100 milliseconds or 50 milliseconds or something like that. Basically, it lets you change how fast you shove the air in. That's all it is. So the shorter, the faster should. If you put it to 0, we'll just go straight up. And it's a punch in the face. The COPD is happy. They love it. Okay, what is this?
Percentage of phase of exhalation where the ventilator says I'm going to stop.
Excellent. Do you guys remember the flow graph? And then it ramps down. So it peaked around 60 or so. It could be 90, it could be 20, it depends on you. Let's say I flow, I'm just a crazy COPDer and I was doing meth 5 minutes ago and you guys intubated me and I am flowing at 100 liters. I can't do 100 liters, but let's pretend, okay? I'm flowing at 100 liters because 100 makes math easy. That's the only reason I did that, okay? At 25%, just like he said, once I get to 25 liters a minute, so my graph starts off at 100, and I can't stay at 100. I'm going to start ramping down. So I'm going to start off at 100. Once I hit 25 liters, the breath gets cut off. So if someone's taking a big breath and I want to cut them off earlier, I can cut them off by increasing that percentage. So instead of cutting them off at 25 liters a minute, I can cut them off when they reach 50 liters a minute. If I'm at 25%, let's pretend a normal breath is 4 liters, like a flow rate. That is not correct, but 4 liters here. We're just gonna do 4 hash marks. You guys see that? Everyone can see that? Okay. This is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you have me set to 25, it will cut the breath off once I get to here, 25 liters a minute, or whatever, like a quarter. If you have it set to 50%, it will cut me off here, and it will make my breath shorter. It will decrease my tidal volume. So this is sometimes used to decrease people's tidal volume. If you have it set to 80%, which is the max, it will not let you do 100%. The max is, it will cut you off somewhere here. So you can see my I time. This is time over here. My I time gets shorter and shorter and shorter. Because ASV did not have an eye time. Did you guys see that? There's no eye time on this screen. Do you guys see that anywhere? Are you guys okay with that? So I wouldn't mess with this. 25 is normal. If I want a longer breath, I can go down to 10%. 25% is normal. Safe? Everyone feels comfortable? No one's triggered? Okay.
Can I ask you, please, so there really wasn't like any pediatric guidelines for this, for ASV, and that's our mode. So I kind of wrote in that we're explicitly not changing the P limits for pediatrics above 30, because like, we can do it for adults, but just a safe.
Yeah, I would say your pop-off valve should be 40. So 30 upper limit, it should be 30, yeah,
So,
for pediatric.
That's one of the safe.
It's the same, yeah.
And then, I know the Revell, when we go pediatrics, it limits like the eye time of 0.3, and then we go neonates like 0.15. And so because we're nasal, we can't limit the eye time. I assume when you're dialing in.
The percent volume.
Yeah.
So that minute volume, when you guys dial it in for pediatrics, this machine does that for you. It actually messes with so do you guys remember when I said it's 10% of your predicted body weight? For kids, it starts off at 30%, or sorry, instead of 10%, it starts off at 30%. Kids have a higher metabolism. The smaller you are, the higher your metabolism is. A rat has much higher metabolism than an elephant. So kids have a high metabolism, so they're actually at 30 liters a minute, which to get that, or not 30 liters a minute, sorry, 30%, so 0.3, okay, 30%, as opposed to adults, which are only 10% of our predicted body weight. To get that fast of a rate, you have to have a shorter eye time, and the machine figures that out for you.
ASV will figure out based off the height.
Based off the height, yeah.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
This is what I wrote up for the pediatrics. I was going to confirm that.
Yeah, but it uses a different calculation basically. So, and for adults, it uses 10% for your minute volume. For kids, it uses up to 30%. It starts off at like 3 kilos or something like that, I think, and then up until 30. It basically decreases. It starts off at 30% at the 3 kilos, and then it goes up to like 20%, or sorry, like 20% somewhere halfway there, and then up until 30. Once you hit 30, it's 10%. Does that make any sense? Or okay, we just probably confused everyone. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, what am I showing you guys here? These are your alarms, okay? This is your peak airway alarm, which is 10 points above that pressure limit that we set earlier, that 30. Do you guys see that? That's the pop-off valve. So if it takes more pressure than 400, or whatever, 40, if it takes more pressure to inflate your lungs than 40, this is where ASV is gonna be like, I can't do this anymore. And you're gonna have to like break out dust off the stuff that we covered a second ago and really program a ventilator, okay? So if the machine cannot give you the tidal volume that you want by getting to here, and it gets to here and it can't do that, that's when the machine quits. Does that make any sense right there? The machine will not be able to deliver and do this mode. I haven't shown you what the mode is yet. So I'm gonna show you what that mode is. The mode is basically, it tries to match the patient's respiratory rate and tidal volumes to a minute volume. So when you guys set that percent minute volume, I'm 70 kilos, what is my minute volume? 7 liters, right? It tries, this is over here volumes, this is how many mils you're getting, and this is rate. It tries to match, let's say I'm breathing 20 times a minute, it tries to decrease the pressure or increase the pressure to give me a volume that when you multiply it by 20, it gives me 7 liters. It tries to titrate, and it makes a graph that all the different combinations of respiratory rate and tidal volume that will match those parameters, that will give me 7 liters. I just made up the 7 liters, okay? This is a very important concept for you guys. This is the ASV mode. Does this make any sense? I see blank faces right now.
I'm just curious because the way it was explained was based off of the lung compliance. So it was going to give as much volume as it can when it reaches that lung compliance. Then it says, hey, this is the volume. We're going to start showing the rate.
It does that, but it depends also on the patient's effort too. So your compliance changes. So this doesn't have the machine does not have a inspiratory pause. It does not have a valve that can shut it off and tell it the actual compliance. So it figures out your compliance based on some math. Yeah, so it figures out your compliance based on pressures. And the problem with it is you also have if you have a completely passive patient, which means rocuronium or something like that, then yes, the machine tries to deliver the maximal safe volume and then decrease the rate.
Because if you're timing off and you're back breathing during the inspiratory phase, you're in, okay. That makes sense.
But if I'm active, the machine tries to match my respiratory rate and keep my volumes in a safe range. It doesn't want me to be uncomfortable, because if the machine is only trying to give me 14 breaths when I want 20, that's not cool. But if I'm rocuroniumed, the machine will try to figure out, basically, it runs me across this graph to what it thinks I'm doing the least amount of work. So it keeps sensing my flows, my pressures, my change on it, me sucking on it. It keeps sensing that and sees how much volume it's delivering, and it tries to do math, lots of complicated math, and it goes back and forth across this line. This is confusing, right? Okay. So
you're explaining the ASV graph that
Yeah.
we're going to see.
Yes.
Just explaining it.
That's it, nothing else. I'm just explaining the graph. This is the graph in real life.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen this graph before? Is this the first time? Is this like the first time you guys seen this?
No, we've seen it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. This is totally different than the graphs I was showing you. This is doing their own thing. This is Hamilton's own thing. Okay? It's a math formula. This line, this exponential line right here is a math formula. If it takes basically this is my respiratory rate times my tidal volume, and it gives me 7 liters. Everywhere across this line gives me 7 liters. If you do the math everywhere across this line, if you take the x times the y, it'll give you 7 liters. That's all that is. That's all the machine's doing right there. Now what it does is, let's look at these things. 1, you guys see 1 right here? Horizontal axis is my rate. The vertical axis right here is my tidal volume. You guys cool so far? 3 is that respiratory rate. So this graph right here, this little line, is my respiratory rate times my tidal volume. All across this equals 7. This is everywhere across the graph, the Cartesian plane from freaking 6th grade, everywhere across that where the number equals 7. The product of x and y equals 7. Are you guys cool with that? Okay. So 4 is a safety frame in which target point may move. What that means is this is the safety parameters where I can change this is the upper limit of my tidal volume. Anything above this is unsafe. Okay? This is what they decided is the safety limit for your respiratory rate. This is the safety limit that they decided the minimum tidal volume for you based on your height. This is the safety limit of the minimum rate that they decided. So anywhere in there we're fair game. We can play around anywhere in there. The machine will change the pressure it delivers to keep me on this graph. So right now I'm here. My tidal volume is, I don't know, some number, 500, okay? And then my respiratory rate's like 20 instead of 16. It wants me to be on the line though. It thinks the line is the most comfortable place on the planet. It does its own math based on the pressures in your lungs using its own system, its own math, and it says probably the closest safe area is 434 tidal volume and 16 respiratory rate. And it can play around from there, and that's the target. That's that green dot right there. So this is actually you, and this is the green dot. Does that make any sense? That's all that I'm showing you guys. You guys have seen this before? This is a review? Kinda? No? Okay, for some? Okay. So we just covered this a second ago. This is the safety parameters. So what's A? High, low. And what do we not want to drop under? What's the lowest tidal volume you want to deliver? Mils a kg. Actually, you can go down to 4. After 4, then you're really worried about dead space ventilation. Okay, so the lowest you'll see in the hospital is 4 mils a kg. For you guys, 6. That's what the ASV graph is going to do for you guys. D is what? That's your lower rate. And C is what? Cool, guys. So wide square, let's just go over the boxes here. What's a wide square shaped? Oh, I already gave the answers, I guess. A big box that covers the whole screen means you have normal lungs. Okay? Let's go over the next box. Why does this machine right here have a narrow, it's not tall, the box got trimmed. If we go back here, look at this thing. I'm gonna shave some real estate from the top and shave some real estate from the bottom here. Why did that happen? Huh? Yeah. So what happens if I try to get an 800 tidal volume on this guy? Yeah, it's going to be really high pressures. The machine's going to have to deliver really high pressures to achieve that. So it doesn't want to do that. It says, hey man, this is the most pressure I want to deliver for you is right here. That's how it figured that out. Does that make sense? The rates didn't change or anything like that. Let's see what happened here. I'm sorry I gave you guys the answers. Can you guys, anyone want to gander why this happened? Why did we all of a sudden get okay high, okay low, but the rates changed?
When your I to E ratio would be 1:5, 1:4.
What's your name?
SCCAD.
Is he smart? Yeah. Did you guys hear that? It's trying to match your I to E ratios where you completely exhale. So it doesn't want you to have too many breaths where you don't completely exhale. And it doesn't want you to have too little breaths where you don't ventilate at all. Does that make sense? The pressure wasn't really the biggest issue. I mean, it's a little shorter than the normal box because there is obstruction, but it wasn't the biggest problem. The biggest problem was the rate. They didn't want you to have too crazy of a rates. So it narrowed it down. Does that make sense? I lose anyone? Okay. This is the suckiest one. What happened here? What is this? What disease process is this? This is ARDS. So it's really stiff lungs, and they need to ventilate. Okay, you need perfect timing for their ventilation as well. They have a lot of mucus, they have a lot of obstruction, a lot of issues. You're trying to basically match it up, and that's all that is. When we will run into trouble is when the machine cannot reach those target volumes with those pressures. Basically, when the machine is outside the box, when the lungs are way too stiff, and that's when you're going to have to crack open the dust off the little modes that we talked about, pressure control and stuff like that. For you guys, it's called CMV+, okay? Even though this is called volume control for you, CMV+ is volume control, it's not. It's a pressure mode for you guys. So this is all 4 graphs in one place so you guys can see them. Did I lose anyone there? Okay, this is all review, right? And this is the thing I hate. I absolutely hate this thing. But this is but you know what? To each their own. If you guys want to use this graph, this is another way to look at it. Number 1, if they have like square lungs, that's stiff lungs for them. Do you guys see that? Low compliance or very low compliance. I don't even see, like 1 and 2 look the same to me. Do you guys even like see the difference? They're less stiff, I guess. Is that it? Okay, can you guys see it? I mean, there's like less, this one's like straight down. This one has like a little hump and then another hump.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, you guys see it? Yeah, it's slightly less. This one's nice and smooth. And then the homeboy here has like chonky lungs, and that's high compliance. What's high compliance? COPD, right? COPD is high compliance. And then this has the resistance, maybe the resistance one's kind of cool, like black for good. I don't know. 2 for normal, or I don't know, guys. Do you guys use this?
Not yet.
Okay, don't use it, please. Okay.